Hey guys, it's Steve here. Today I'm with my motorized bicycle, and as you can tell, I currently don't have a wheel on it. And that's the story I'm going to tell you right now. So this bike right here is a Huffy Naluso, and it is a beach cruiser bike. And part of the beach cruiser bike is it is a single gear and it has a coaster brake on it. That means when you pedal backwards, this back wheel will stop itself. That's the brakes on it. And that's what actually broke this rear wheel. So let me tell you that story. I was driving down the road and somebody pulled out in front of me. I had to slam on my brakes. Well, in the process of me slamming on my brakes, the brakes worked, but the wheel kept on spinning. And the reason that the wheel kept on spinning was the flange that holds all these spokes on kept on spinning around the center shaft of the brake. And that leaves this bike useless until I fix this wheel. So there's two ways to fix this wheel. One, we could just buy a new rim. That's the easy route. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try respoking this wheel so I can replace the center hub. So I went on eBay and I bought this center hub here, and it has all my holes to where all these spokes run into. So we're going to try replacing this on this wheel. We're going to do that inside because it's only 20 degrees out in my garage right now. So let me give you a quick look of what this wheel currently looks like. As you can see, this is the center shaft right here, and this flange that holds the spokes on is supposed to be sitting out here at this side. But when I had to slam on my brakes, the wheel kept on spinning around the center shaft and got itself out of place. So let me show you the pattern that is on this wheel. So we're going to start at the valve stem, and we're going to go to the spoke that's right next to it. Now we're looking at the side that is closest to us. So we're going to go follow this one, and you'll see that this spoke goes through the top of the flange and then out to the wheel. Well, the next one on this flange comes up through the back and then out to the wheel. So there's a pattern of up through, up through, up through on this flange. Now to separate out our spokes, I'm going to show you the pattern. We'll go back to our valve stem, the spoke here. If we go over 2, you'll see that this would be the next spoke. Well, starting from here, we got 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are separated by 4 spokes, 4 holes at the end. Well, the next one over, once again, is 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that's the pattern that goes around on the spokes this way. Now, for all the spokes that are coming up through the flange, start at the valve stem again, and we're going to look at this spoke and follow it back, and we'll see that the next hole over goes to this spoke here. So if we count back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 10 holes separate these. But at the same time, the same pattern is 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it's just a continuing pattern all the way around. So now that we know that, it's going to be the same pattern on the other side. So if we flip it over, start at the valve stem. So here's the piece of tape that we had. The valve stem again, it is the same pattern. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the same pattern would be on this side as well. So let's go ahead and we're going to take apart this wheel. So first we need to deflate this tire. And this will take a little bit. Now without puncturing the inner tube, we're going to carefully remove the outer rubber. There we are. Now we got our whole wheel removed. And now we just got the rim. So hopefully you can see this here, but all the spokes come up through the wheel, and then there is, you can kind of see a screw head on top here through this piece of protective rubber. So we can try to remove this plastic rubber out of the way. And if you do damage this, you could just use electrical tape to cover up all the holes. So this little piece of rubber is here to protect these screws from puncturing the rubber tube inside. Let's put that off to the side. And then we can try to remove each of these pieces right here that hold the spoke onto the rim. There we have it. Now it's the part of removing all the spokes. So we're going to start with our spokes and start sticking them through the center hub here. Now these spokes are kind of thicker than some other ones, so we can fit the spoke kind of tightly through this side, but this side is going to be a little bit more difficult. We'll just have to kind of bend it and get it to go through. Otherwise, we might have to drill out some of these holes in order to make them a little bit wider. Now with all of our spokes in here, let's go ahead and we will find our starter hole. So there is our valve stem hole, and we're going to go to the hole right next to it. And if you remember, the first one came down through the hole, then out. We're going to go ahead and we're going to stick that through the rim, and then we're going to put one of the nuts back on. And then we're going to count over 2 spots. So the next one going down and through. 1, 2, 3, 4. Count over 2 more spokes. There. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Go over 2 more spokes. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now with all those spokes in on that side, we're going to do the spokes that come up and through. So once again, we're going to find our stem. That's this one. And now, looking at this clockwise, we're going to look at the spoke that is clockwise 1 over. And then we're going to count back 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is this guy right here. Now if you have troubles, make sure that all these spokes are getting pulled through. So all these little nuts are sticking through the frame here, because you will have to turn this counterclockwise a little bit. Now you can use a screwdriver to help do it, otherwise these are square so you can get a nice grip on them. So now that we have that one in, we're going to go over 2 more. 2 on this end, and then count over 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So the one thing I couldn't show you is which hole to start on this side of the flange, because we'll need to start in a certain hole, that way everything lines up accordingly. Well, since I didn't show you before, I went and got my front tire. So this is my front tire off my bike, and I put 2 pieces of tape here so you see which ones I'm talking about. Well, this is the side that we already did. Well, if you were to follow this back onto the back side of the flange, and you were to try to line up these holes with the bottom ones, you'll see that they're actually off a little bit. So this flange and the bottom flange are off. So if you follow this one down and you were to look, you would see that this hole for this spoke falls in between these 2 spokes. So if you were to count back to this spoke, which is the one that we want, so if you start halfway, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the next hole. So if that makes sense. So once again, we'll start with, follow this one back, go up, you'll see it falls in between these 2 ones, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the hole. So if we were to go back to our rim, this is the spoke that we are starting with. I will see that it falls in between this hole right here. So we'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and this is the hole that we want. Let's start there. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I've gone ahead and I got all the spokes inside the center hub. I would suggest, if you are going to do this, install all the spokes at the beginning before you attempt to put it on the frame. I did have trouble wiggling some of these wires in between the ones that are already installed, but if you had all the spokes installed ahead of time, that would definitely help out. Now I didn't do it that way just so I could show you how to install all these spokes, but definitely do it that way. It'll save yourself a headache trying to wiggle all these wires into place. So to get started on this last section, we're going to go ahead and we'll find our valve stem hole, and we will find the spoke that is right next to it and follow that back. Now using the center hub clockwise, we are going to grab the next spoke over, which was this one, and we're going to count back 10 from here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that is going to be our very first one. Now with that one installed, we'll just go over every 2 and fill in the last holes. So as you can see, we got all the spokes installed now, but it is a little bit loose. So what we're going to do is we're going to tighten up all these little nuts that are at the end of each spoke. Now to get started, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tighten these up to the point where I cannot see any more threads. And then we'll use that as a basis to see how much more we need to tighten it. So I have all these spokes about as tight as I can get them. I'm very satisfied with how little slack there is in any of this frame. And there is really no wiggle inside the rim as well. So I went ahead and I have this piece of exercise equipment, and we use this so that we can ride bicycle indoors in the middle of winter. And I put it in here so I can see how much wiggle is in this wheel. So I could spin this and I could just eyeball it and it looks pretty good. But better yet, I could take a screwdriver and I can line up the screwdriver with the edge of the rim. And as I spin the wheel, I can see where the wiggle is. You know, if this edge of this rim gets close to the screwdriver because the screwdriver is stationary. Now, if the rim is getting pulled to one side or the other, so let's say the rim is getting pulled this way towards the screwdriver, I can loosen up the spoke that is on this side of the rim and then tighten up the 2 screws that are right next to it. And that should pull the rim this way. So I would just do that back and see how much wiggle I can get rid of. Now I'm very satisfied with how this turned out. I actually put my front wheel in here and there is wiggle in my front wheel to begin with, and that was from the factory. So now all I have to do is go ahead and put this rubber gasket back on, and that'll cover up all these screws so it doesn't puncture the tube inside. Now, like I said, if this is damaged, you can use electrical tape or even duct tape to cover up these screws. It's just preventing any damage happening to that inner tube. Now with the piece of rubber in there, let's go ahead and we will install the rest of the tire. Now we can just inflate it, add the rest of our hardware, and then we can put this back onto the bike. So there's a few pieces that came with this center hub. One, we got some nuts that go on the end, but then we have the sprocket, we have a dust guard, so a dust guard goes on first. The sprocket has these little notches in them which fit into the notches on the center of the hub here. And then we have this little metal ring that is actually cut. And that's going to fit into this little notch right inside there. There we go. Now it's all connected and ready to go. So I got everything back together now. This wasn't too hard of a project. It took me more time to actually put the bike back together by putting the sprocket back on than actually building the wheel. So there is one thing I forgot to tell you when putting on the rubber tire. There is usually an arrow that'll tell you the direction that the wheel spins, so you know which way to put the rubber tire back on. Overall, this was a pretty easy project. If it wasn't the middle of February right now, I would take you out for a ride, but it's 20 degrees out and we're not going to do that today. So check back in the spring and we'll take this bike for a ride and check out this wheel. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below and I will try to answer as many as I can. Thanks for watching.